This program made possible in part by grants from the UCF College of Health and Public Affairs, which promotes excellence in undergraduate and graduate education, research, and community service in health-related professions and public affairs. And the UCF College of Medicine, where our goal is to become America's leading partnership medical school and a national leader in medical education and research. And the UCF College of Nursing, which offers high-quality, innovative academic programs that reflect the healthcare needs of a changing population and meet the needs of today's students.
Hello everyone, welcome to For Your Health. I'm Ed Highland.
And I'm Charna Davis-Weese. On today's show, we're looking ahead to a new world in which emergency management and homeland security will be more important than ever. We'll talk about that just ahead.
Also today, a new vaccine is virtually eliminating a nasty childhood virus that affects millions of kids.
I'm Alicia Callanan Mandigo. A climate change summit at UCF puts the focus on health. I'll have that story.
But first, let's get an update on UCF Health News.
Maybe your household has been spared a bout with rotavirus. You're lucky if that's so. It's a nasty illness that affects more than 2.5 million kids each year. But a new vaccine treatment is virtually wiping out the threat of rotavirus.
Okay, come on. Come on, Mommy.
2-year-old Jacob Lowry is full of energy, but when he was 11 months old, he caught a rotavirus infection. Constant vomiting and diarrhea dehydrated Jacob so badly he barely moved. His parents rushed him to the ER.
That is so scary, no matter what your child's situation, to see, this person who just doesn't have the energy to move a limb or to look up at you or to shed a tear, and that scares you very much.
The FDA has now approved Rotatech, a vaccine that helps prevent rotavirus infections in babies. Infectious disease experts like Dr. Paul Offit administer Rotatech orally when children are 2, 4, and 6 months old.
It goes through the stomach into the small intestine, where it induces an immune response, and that immune response protects you from getting fever and vomiting and diarrhea.
Rapid dehydration is the greatest danger to children who get the virus. Parents take 250,000 kids to the ER. 70,000 are hospitalized. Doctors expect Rotatech to reduce hospitalizations by 98% in the U.S. But in the developing world, the virus effects are more devastating. It kills 2,000 children a day. Wendy wishes Rotatech was around when Jacob was a baby.
I just think it's not worth putting children at risk. If there are vaccines out there that are safe and can protect them from some of these things, then I would give it to them now.
I'm Cynthia Demas reporting.
Outside the U.S., more than 600,000 children die from rotavirus infections each year, so it can be a very serious illness.
There are two major events that forever changed the way we look at safety: the attack on the World Trade Center and Hurricane Katrina. One was a terrorist attack, the other a natural disaster, but both created significant health risks.
Those health risks are part of the reason emergency management and homeland security are now among the fastest growing industries in our country. Joining us today is Dr. Naeem Kapochu from UCF's Department of Public Administration. Thank you for joining us. When I think of emergency management and homeland security as a layperson, I think of the drills we did in high school, and we took part as being the quote-unquote victims, and the fire department would come out, and it didn't really mean anything to us then. But everything has changed now. Now it's something that people are aware of. It's like something that exists, but you don't know it's there till you need it. What made you go into this as a profession, as your study, before this became something that's such a big issue to us?
I think it's been a big issue as an emergency management, but we did not see it as a major responsibility for federal government, even for state governments till late 50s in this country, because that was assumed as a major responsibility for civil society organizations, non-profit organizations locally. Then it became a responsibility for local government organizations. The emergency management business became a major responsibility with a major policy in 1950s in Disaster Response Act. Then, of course, the shift over time with the creation of FEMA 1979 and several other federal government involvement in emergency management business, it became much more visible in this country as a business, as a government activity and government responsibility. And that was, as you mentioned, completely changed in terms of as federal government responsibility after 9/11, with the creation of the Department of Homeland Security and including Federal Emergency Management Agency as a key major organization responsible in managing disasters in the country as part of a humongous, larger Department of Homeland Security. That includes 21 other federal agencies after the 9/11 catastrophic disaster, man-made disaster. And with the Hurricane Katrina 2005, it became much more visible, unfortunately with significant failure in terms of federal organizational response to Hurricane Katrina and the working relationships between federal government, local and state level agencies as well. So it became visible for lay people and scholars as well. But personally, I've been doing research before 9/11 on international disaster management at the University of Pittsburgh with my PhD dissertation. And we've been working with my mentor at the time for certain grant projects from National Science Foundation. Then 9/11 happened. I was about to write my proposal for my dissertation, and we made some minor changes into my prospectus and include 9/11 as a case study. Then I did study the intergovernmental response to a significant crisis. And I was hoping to stop working on disaster management issues, and I published enough from my dissertation and several other case studies on 9/11, but unfortunately we had hurricanes in 2004 in Florida, and 3 hurricanes significantly impacted Central Florida communities as well. So I did study a lot in terms of, again, from public administration perspective, from emergency management perspective, and role of nonprofit organizations, governmental agencies in managing. That was a catastrophic disaster too, the 4 hurricanes in 6 weeks period. And based on FEMA data, we evacuated more than 9.5 million individuals from Central Florida to other parts of the state. And that wasn't with any significant problem. In response to Hurricane Katrina, though, we had evacuated 1.5 million people with so many problems. So it became, and I think it should be, a significant interest in terms of scholarly work from health perspective, from public administration perspective, from sociology of disasters perspective, because that was huge, and it wasn't just impacted this country, the impact in terms of economics and also management perspectives and lessons learned from that catastrophic disaster that impacted other countries worldwide as well.
We need to talk a little bit more about what you learned from your successes as well as the failures that have taken place in some of these major events that have taken place. But we're going to take a short break first to get a little more of insight about the UCF's Department of Public Administration. And we're back once again talking with Dr. Capuccio about the successes and the failures of the federal government and the state government in regards to Katrina and the World Trade Center disasters, and basically programs that are trying to help tie people together into a little better network.
You know, when I was watching Katrina, the aftermath, just like all the rest of us in horror, watching what was going on, and it seemed to be one after another, the mayor blaming the governor and the federal government blaming this and this one blaming that. But there didn't seem to be the cohesiveness, the coalition that maybe if everybody just, can't we all get along, you know, a cliche that if they'd work together, or maybe that's the, is that the answer to working together?
I think that is the answer, and that is our focus in our graduate certificate in emergency management homeland security program. And when I came into UCF almost 5 years ago, we had an emergency management program, minor, but it wasn't LI. So what we did was actually discuss at the college level to make it a more interdisciplinary program. We did revise the curriculum and add health administration, health policy perspective, and some terrorism aspects based on the homeland security changes at the federal level policy. So we revised the program in 2004-2005, and based on our experience with the minor program, we had probably 10 students in the program in the minor level. Now we have more than 50 students in the minor and very active students. So based on our experience with the minor program, we did develop graduate level certificate, and this is much more interdisciplinary than the undergraduate minor. We have political science involved, we have planning involved, we have health policy involved, we have criminal justice also involved in this program. The main focus of the program is, as you mentioned, based on our experiences in response to 9/11 and in response to Hurricane Katrina. The failure in terms of cross-sectoral governance. We do have enormous resources in this country among nonprofit organizations. We do have enormous resources among private sector organizations as well. One of the key aspects right now the federal government is dealing is critical infrastructure protection. And in this country, 85% of the critical infrastructure is owned by private companies. Without including them as partner in terms of planning and execution and response and recovery, we cannot protect critical infrastructure. So our focus is within the program, based on the failure and success in response to 9/11 and response to Katrina, how we can develop that relationship building among our students. They will be learning theory, and also they will be practicing within the exercises with the guest speakers and a lot of relationship with our community partners, some service learning projects. They will also learn how to develop networks, how to actually behave in terms of crisis management. And they need to practice this before anything happens. Because in terms of managing crises and disasters, either man-made or natural disasters, the Hurricane Katrina experience was, for example, a man-made natural disaster, but with the collapse of levees, it became a combination of both. And the 9/11 disaster, catastrophic event was, extreme event was more man-caused terrorism activities. So in either case, what we needed to have a relationships built before anything happened, because people will not have time to build relationship during those managing and responding to those emergencies.
Do the relationships trump all? I mean, whether it's a terrorist attack or a natural disaster of some type, or do you have to have a different mindset going into it as you're trying to educate the people coming into the program, that you have to think differently when it's something that happened like a Katrina versus a World Trade Center?
I think that's an excellent point. Traditionally, what we've seen, the both are completely separate entities. So if it is man-made, we need to have a separate mental capacity. If it is natural, we need to have different culture of preparedness. With the creation of Department of Homeland Security and many other development over time, I like to mention, for example, development of federal response plan. Right after Hurricane Andrew in 1992, we experienced in the state of Florida. We did not have a unified response plan among federal government agencies. And right after Hurricane Andrew, the federal government developed, under the responsibility of Federal Emergency Management Agency, a federal response plan. That was an excellent idea, to have a unified interoperable plan at the federal government level. But the problem was the mindset among individuals. I think we will discuss it later in our conversation. People assume that it is the responsibility of federal government. If anything happens, they will protect us. We don't need to do anything. So with 9/11 catastrophic case, it's changed to from federal response to national response. And we had a new plan, several changes over time, of course, after 9/11, but the final plan called National Response Plan in 2004. That means that is the responsibility of everyone. It is not just law enforcement, it is not just first responder. It is not just the emergency management people or state and federal level organizations. It is the responsibility of everyone. This is the perspective we like to bring to our program. It is the responsibility of everyone. We need to build relationship with our nonprofit organizations, private companies, local level, state level, and federal level organizations, and individual citizens as well. We had another interesting change based on our experience in response to Hurricane Katrina. Of course, the National Response Plan tested and failed. It wasn't successful. Now we have National Response Framework. It is kind of a more flexible framework in managing catastrophic disasters that include man-made or natural, and that gives an idea for executive leadership that includes nonprofit leaders, private leaders, and executive leaders at federal government and state government as well. A kind of a mindset. How are we going to behave in managing catastrophic disasters? The other development is also significant, combining crisis management and consecutive management together after the Department of Homeland Security creation. We had FEMA responsible managing natural disasters. Of course, they've been responding to terrorist activities and also man-made disasters, but that was assumed the sole responsibility of FEMA. If it is something more criminal or man-made, man-caused, or terrorist activities, we had FBI main responsible organizations. The idea with the creation of the Department of Homeland Security was, how can we put these two different cultures together and have a unified national incident management system? So we have another document that was implemented a lot and significantly successfully among firefighters, incident command system. Now it become a national standard for federal organizations, state organizations, local organizations, even some public and nonprofit and private companies who want to be compliant in terms of federal rules and regulations. They need to be NIMS compliant, National Incident Management System. That is also a significant development in terms of managing smaller size or catastrophic disasters. So at every level, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, law enforcement people, health people, and emergency managers will have a structured language.
It makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know, it just makes sense. It's like waiting for, you're in school, you get hurt, and you can't sit there and wait for mom and dad to come and pick you up. You know, I remember even at the time thinking, okay, we want to blame the federal government, but how long would it take them to get people even mobilized to get to the area?
Absolutely. I had a graduate student actually working with me in researching the Hurricane Katrina response operations, and she came to me and said, I'm not able to find anything significant, but something interesting in those government documents and newspaper content analysis was the federal level was significantly slow compared to local government agencies and even faith-based initiatives. And I said, you can write an article on this, finding because this is significant. This is what we expect. The federal government is a slow process. There are a lot of rules and regulations they need to follow. But if the church group or something smaller size and closer to people impacted by those hurricanes or other types of disasters, they can go and work with those individuals flexibly and much more faster.
Are we learning things also for, I'll call them local disasters, things that do not rise to the level of bringing in a FEMA or perhaps even the state government, maybe more of a locally based either natural or man-made disaster, a tornado?
So, traditionally what we study and teach to our students, all disasters are local, no matter what. All disasters are local. And legally, policy-wise, in the state of Florida, for example, counties are responsible in managing disasters, not the state. Counties are responsible. It might be different from state to state, but usually county level is the major responsibility for managing disasters. But again, as you mentioned, if it overwhelms, the disaster, size of disaster overwhelms the resources the local government or county government has, they can always ask help from the state. If the state is not able to respond quickly or they do not have enough resources to respond, they can always ask from federal government. But this process is extremely important. So the problem we saw, for example, in the response to Hurricane Katrina, at the local level, people were not able to get together quickly and then make a decision, ask help from state. Then state and local government will make a quick decision and ask help from federal government. If this process not followed, the president himself or herself can authorize $8 million to help locals. That's not too much. But if the process carefully followed, the Congress can authorize billions of dollars.
We just need to be able to talk to one another to get that to happen.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
There is also always something new to talk about when it comes to UCF's College of Medicine. Here's the latest. Discussions about climate change are increasingly turning to discussions about health threats. Both the CDC and the World Health Organization are concerned. And as Alicia Callanan-Mandigo found out, the Orange County Health Department is also addressing the issue.
When you consider the threats created by global warming, you probably think about things like rising sea levels, hurricanes, and brush fires. What you may not know is that the CDC considers global warming a direct threat to your personal health.
Mostly people have conceptualized it as an environmental health issue, or an environmental issue generally. And there are significant human health threats in the U.S. and globally. And then also we want to put out a message, it's at the CDC website on our climate change and health page, that there are things you can do to combat this. It's scary to think about, but there are things you can do.
The Orange County Health Department has launched a similar campaign. So the focus here is on what individuals can do to help mitigate climate change. And most of the steps are pretty simple. Things like looking for opportunities to walk instead of drive. At a public summit on global climate change at UCF, discussions on health threats ranged from the effects of heat to the migration of tropical diseases.
Well, there's no doubt about it. When you have temperature changes in the environment, it's going to affect health outcomes. It's going to affect the kinds of diseases that you can see. And just think about it for a minute. The tropical diseases are going to move north. If there's actual temperature changes in more temperate climates, like the example of malaria in Massachusetts, that's pretty far north for a disease like that.
The questions these experts are tackling are when and where and how we will handle it.
Can the World Health Organization look at the dengue as it moves north? It's in the Caribbean basin now. There are hundreds of people in Brazil who died of dengue this year.
I know.
Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
And look at the numbers in Mexico, right across the border. There's huge numbers of people who are afflicted by dengue fever. It's in the Caribbean basin. It's in the Virgin Islands now. How long before it gets into Florida?
That question is the reason the Orange County Health Department, the CDC, the World Health Organization, and all the participants in this summit are urging people everywhere to go green.
Are we going to see a shift in our approach? It's always been go green because it's good for the planet. Are we going to see a shift where it's going to be go green because it'll save your life?
Hey, that would be a really neat idea, wouldn't it? Because even bringing up health in the conversation about global climate change, and it should have been there right along, as we look at it now, looking back, we have wisdom on the history of how this thing is coming about. I think it's important. And so you not only save your planet, you save your health, you save your life. And for us, the species, the human species, to survive, we need a habitat. If we destroy the planet, we're dead.
I'm Alicia Callanan-Mandigo for your health.
The World Health Organization warns that while developing nations are the most at risk for the devastating effects of climate change, rich nations are at risk too. Just think of how easily a malaria-infected mosquito could board an airplane.
Or a person with malaria, for that matter.
Thanks for watching. I'm Charna Davis-Wiese.
And I'm Ed Highland. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on For Your Health.